You probably used one of these before. It's a car GPS. It's neat, it's handy, it connects to a satellite flying in space. You probably can't even get to a place without one. And so for us, a population who grew up surrounded by all this technology, it might be surprising to know that this was invented in the 70s by the Department of Defense. But like similar advancements of the time, this device will be the creation of the space race.
Because we are continuing to monitor the space launch that we're expecting. This is China's Jiuquan space launch center.
The biggest rocket ever built roared off the...
In 1942, the Germans would successfully develop the V-1 and V-2 rockets under Wernher von Braun. Watch out for him, he'll be important soon. And so over the course of the war, there would be weapons of mass destruction and terror, killing thousands. And though these rockets terrified the Allies, it also eventually caught the gleaming eyes of the Soviet Union and the United States, who thought it could give them an advantage in the coming years. So with the conclusion of the war in 1945, both countries rushed to secure German scientists and acquire Nazi scientific advancements.
The original idea was to utilize German science, and out of that came the Project Paperclip.
Originally intended to bring experts to assist the United States in its war effort against Japan, Project Overcast was redesignated Operation Paperclip, and it was with this effort the United States eventually intercepted von Braun and his group of German scientists. Now here comes the sketchy part. Though President Truman forbade the Joint Intelligence Objective Agency, the organization in charge of Operation Paperclip, from recruiting any Nazi members or supporters, the JIOA, with the help of the OSS, the forerunners to the CIA, often ignored this directive. Evidence was eliminated or whitewashed. Actually, many German recruits were involved with the Nazi Party. I mean, Wernher von Braun, who would play a leading role in Nazi years later, was even a member of the SS, the same organization who is directly responsible for engineering the Holocaust. And with 1,600 German scientists and engineers, including their families, brought to the United States between 1945 and 1959, the message became undeniably clear. We needed their ballistics program, we needed it first. And we definitely needed to make sure the Soviets didn't get it. The Soviet government forcibly captured thousands of German scientists and engineers for Operation. The Soviets set them to work on military projects such as the Soviet ballistic missile program. But with a remote work environment, German efforts were largely ineffective. Many were eventually repatriated back to the German Democratic Republic in the early 1950s. And so now the stage is set. Two countries, now superpowers, armed with a guarantee for mutual destruction, gearing up against each other.
July 1st marks the beginning of one of the great scientific adventures of our time, the International Geophysical Year.
With this initiation, the space race would witness its first act. After years of planning and coordination, the IGY was a global scientific endeavor between July 1st, 1957 to December 31st, 1958, designed to conduct
the most intensive study ever undertaken of our planet.
Like the Americans who announced their intent to launch satellites as part of the IGY in the 1950s, the Soviets would secretly begin development on their response, Object D. With the go-aheads given by the Soviet ministers with Decree
Number 149-88S,
the Soviets would create an ambitious, original design. Meant as the world's first artificial satellite, it would be the crowning jewel of the Soviet Union. Using R-7 rockets, Object D would be launched into low Earth orbit. But things didn't go as planned. Designed to measure the Earth's magnetic field, ion composition, density of the Earth's structure, solar radiation, cosmic rays, meteor hazards, effect of relative theory, and the biological effects of long-term space presence, Object D would prove to be too large and complex to engineer. Faced with the prospect of the United States launching first, the Soviets abandoned their scientific aspirations for Object D. As a result, a simple and lightweight satellite was developed through existing Soviet technology. October 4th, 1957, the Soviets would launch Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite, orbiting the Earth every 96 minutes. And while the world was stunned, the United States reeled in disbelief. And so with the launch of Sputnik, Americans were taken completely aback, shattering the idea that America had an edge in space and rocket development, and alarmed at what this could mean for the United States.
They were using Sputnik to try to scare the United States, to scare Americans.
Congress would quickly approve the formation of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, in 1958. To Americans, it was clear that we needed to and would regain our lead.
But I imagine we will be able to catch up and maybe even surpass them on the way.
The race was on. On January 31st, 1958, the Americans would retaliate against Sputnik with their own satellite, Explorer 1. With 4 years of development, the United States made its first move. December 18, 1958, the United States launches the world's first communication satellite, US SCORE. 15 days later, on January 2nd, 1959, the Soviet Union launches the world's first spacecraft to reach the moon, Luna 1. 7 months later, on August 7, 1959, the United States launches the world's first weather satellite, Explorer 6. A month later, on September 12, 1959, the Soviet Union lands the first probe on the moon's surface, Luna 2. Another month later, on October 1959, the Soviet Union photographs the first images of the far side of the moon with Luna 3. August 19, 1960, the Soviet Union becomes the first to successfully launch and return animals aboard Sputnik 5, testing life support functions and the feasibility of a crewed mission. The United States moves to respond, recovering the first chimpanzee after its orbit aboard Mercury Redstone 2 on January 31st, 1961. April 12, 1961, the Soviet Union launches the first human, Yuri A. Gagarin, to reach and orbit space aboard Vostok 1. The United States moves to respond, launching Alan Shepard, the first American to space, aboard Mercury Redstone 3 on May 5, 1961. In the following month, the Soviets would launch the first woman to reach space aboard Vostok 5. Launched on November 28, 1964, the United States would fly the first probe to Mars on Marina 4. With the success of the Vostok spacecraft, Soviet cosmonaut Leonov would commence the first spacewalk on March 18, 1965 during the Vostok 2 mission. And on May 25, 1961, JFK would announce a goal that would eventually prove to be the beginning of the end.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
With an intense race between the two nations, the Americans desperately needed a victory that would decisively demonstrate their space superiority. And so with Kennedy's speech in 1961, the Americans would officially set their eyes on the moon. Nevertheless, the thus far relatively successful run by the Soviets and Americans would result in tragedy. On January 27, 1967,
Virgil Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee
he would enter their Apollo command module for what seemed to be a regular launch rehearsal test. But at 6:31 p.m., an electrofire would erupt. With the fire igniting the pure oxygen within the airtight capsule, this day would claim the lives of the 3 astronauts. Ultimately, NASA was blamed for a lack of safety and rescue procedures. And so with this amalgamation of ambitious designs and impossible deadlines, we cut corners where we thought we could. In this tale of dreams and the pursuit for great, there was ultimately a moral lesson to be learned. Arrogance and hubris is the doom of safety and human lives. Following the Apollo 1 incident, NASA would forgo crewed launches until Apollo 7 and 8, the latter becoming the first crewed mission to reach and orbit the moon on December 21st, 1968. In lunar orbit, they would take this photo. July 16, 1969. Assured by the success of Apollo missions following Apollo 8, America was now ready to fulfill JFK's promise. With Commander Neil Armstrong, Edwin Buzz Aldrin Jr., and Michael Collins now aboard, the Saturn V would begin its journey. After a 3-day trip, they would land on the lunar surface.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
And on July 20th, 1969, televised in front of the whole world, Neil Armstrong would become the first man ever to set foot on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Though the mission became one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, the moon landing also gave the Americans an absolute and decisive claim to victory. And so following Apollo 11, public attention would rapidly dissipate. With attention shifting towards other priorities like Vietnam War, the Apollo-Soyuz mission would officially signify the end for the Cold War space race. Following budget cuts and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the race in space would enter a phase of dormancy.
This is the world today. Sparked with a renewed interest for the unknown, things have modernized, evolved, and changed. For decades, the space race remained to be a battle between the superpowers. Locked within their tense ideological battle, a frantic dash to be first, to prove one system superior. It was a race defined by the Cold War anxieties played out across the canvas of the cosmos. But the world moved forward, the world evolved, the world changed. And so, supported by technological innovations and economic prospects, the world will once again find itself amidst fierce competition. Welcome to the new space race.
NASA is working to uncover the mystery behind an asteroid that may contain a priceless treasure trove of minerals. The space agency is planning to send an unmanned spacecraft to the chunk of metal in our solar system known as 16 Psyche. Some scientists estimate its minerals could be worth $10,000 quadrillion.
As far as the 1970s, the potential for the cosmos as an economic resource has been recognized. At the time, resources like gold, platinum, palladium, silicon, and other rare earth metals were proven abundantly available in space. Nevertheless, technological limitations and lowered attention ultimately deterred initial investments. But in recent years, the market has shifted to lower the cost of space travel.
Hi, welcome to SpaceX. Here we are in the lobby.
Formed in 2003, SpaceX will be one of these companies. As the brainchild of Elon Musk, the company began designing the Falcon 1. Despite initial trials proving difficult, the Falcon 1 will win the attention of NASA and the US government for its cost effectiveness, gaining nearly $38 billion in funding since 2003. And so, after achieving a successful launch to orbit in September 2008, SpaceX would initiate development on the Falcon 9 in 2010. On May 25, 2012, SpaceX launched the Dragon capsule to orbit and was successful in returning it to Earth. On December 21, 2015, 47 years after Apollo 8, SpaceX successfully returned the Falcon 9 first stage back to Earth for the first time. In the following year, SpaceX would begin drone ship landings. In 2017, a rocket stage that had returned to Earth was successfully reused. June 6, 2024, SpaceX successfully landed the Starship, a rocket designed as the eventual successor to the company's current lineup. And on October 13, 2024, SpaceX successfully catches the Starship. Following the media coverage surrounding the success of really the initial underdog of the industry, SpaceX, the world will rapidly regain its interest in space. Keep in mind, SpaceX remains to be one of numerous other companies that are aimed to pave the way for affordable space flight. Through this fierce competition, the technological limitations of the past have begun to alleviate. Unlike the simple ideological race of the Cold War space race, it seems our modern rendition is fueled by more nuanced motivators. For one, The appeal of space tourism and manufacture have dramatically expanded in the past few years. Secondly, our capability for rapid and reusable rocketry have allowed us to seriously consider the potential of space mining. Discovering helium-3 on the moon, these abundant deposits could be a viable energy source for the USA lasting for thousands of years. In fact, China's chief scientist for its lunar exploration program argues that this helium-3 could power humanity's energy demands for around 10,000 years. Of course, we cannot ignore the possibilities of an extension level event on Earth. With self-sustaining settlements on the Moon or Mars, many have considered space colonization as a viable safeguard for humanity's survival. If NASA's planning to return to the moon with Artemis program in 2017, we'll be going to space to stay.
Yet despite our potential and our aspirations, the future remains unclear. Though the Soviets collapsed in 1991, it seems that tensions have only shifted. If anything, the development ever since documents how space have always meant one thing for us, a new dominion, and perhaps a new dominion for warfare, for destruction. Still, despite grim possibilities, the stars remain bright. At a time of enduring peace, international collaboration on a scale never before seen has endured. Countries will continue to develop their programs further, SpaceX will continue developing their Starship systems, NASA with their Artemis programs, China with their aspirations for space independence, and so on. Of course, this trend might not continue, but the longer it does, the more significant it becomes. So if watching the present doesn't make us feel hopeful about where things are headed, knowing our past might. At the time of recording, June 2025, it has been 82 years since the first launch of the V2 rocket, 66 years since Sputnik 1, 62 years since Vostok 1, 56 years since Apollo 11, 44 years since the first space shuttle, 25 years since the International Space Station, and we're certainly not stopping there. So while the future is endless like the space we inhabit, exploring the last frontier, that's the calculus here. But what's clear is that this race isn't stopping anytime soon.